8:15 a.m., campus routine shatters with an unfamiliar alarm. Within 100 milliseconds, a silent, invisible fear switch fires inside the brain, faster than thought, flooding every system with adrenaline and locking attention on survival. This hidden circuitry decides who freezes, who flees, and who lives with the memory. But how does the brain make that split-second call? And what really happens inside when threat becomes real? Threat detection unfolds on a strict clock. Within just 40 milliseconds, sensory signals from a sudden alarm reach the brain's core alarm system, long before conscious thought. By 100 milliseconds, the brain's internal watchdog has already flagged danger, sending a silent cascade through networks that prime the body for action. In under 200 milliseconds, the first muscle groups tense, and defensive motor programs are being set in motion, even as the mind is still catching up. Over the next 1 to 3 seconds, adrenaline and noradrenaline flood the bloodstream. Heart rate surges, breathing quickens, and focus narrows, all orchestrated by the sympathetic nervous system. This is the window when simple, practiced commands, like lock the door or get down, can still redirect action before the full hormonal wave crests. 10 seconds in, the body is running hot. Blood pressure climbs, skin conductance spikes, and every sense is tuned to threat. But the slowest wave is still building. Around 20 minutes after the initial alarm, cortisol from the adrenal glands reaches its peak, reshaping attention, memory, and emotional tone for hours. This hormonal aftershock can fragment memories, distort time, and leave a lasting imprint, especially if the system stays on high alert. Training, anxiety, and physiology shift these intervals. But the basic stopwatch remains: milliseconds for alarm, seconds for survival, minutes for the aftermath. 4 key brain regions form the backbone of the fear response, each with a distinct job. The amygdala acts as the alarm bell, receiving raw sensory signals and flagging possible danger before conscious thought even begins. Its lateral and central nuclei are tuned for speed, learning to associate sights or sounds with threat, and launching the first wave of defensive reactions. Once the alarm sounds, the periaqueductal gray, called PAG, takes over as the program selector. Located deep in the midbrain, the PAG chooses which defensive script to run, freeze, flight, fight, or even tonic immobility by relaying signals to the spinal cord and autonomic centers. This is the switchboard that decides whether the body locks down or bolts for safety. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, perched at the front of the brain, serves as the executive controller in calmer moments. It weighs risks, considers options, and suppresses reflexes. But as threat intensifies, the prefrontal cortex loses its grip. Under acute stress, its activity dims, making complex decisions and flexible thinking less reliable. The hippocampus, tucked inside the temporal lobe, encodes the context, where and when the threat is happening. It helps determine if a cue should trigger fear and gates the flow of information to and from the amygdala. When stress hormones surge, the hippocampus can struggle, leading to fragmented memories and confusion about sequence. Cognitive neuroscientists describe this system as a branching circuit. The amygdala sounds the alarm. The PAG selects the behavior. The prefrontal cortex tries to steer the response, and the hippocampus records the context. Together, these nodes orchestrate the split-second switch from calm to crisis. People often imagine that fear always triggers a scramble to escape. But the reality is more complex. When the brain's alarm sounds, defensive behavior falls along a spectrum. On one end is freezing, a sudden stillness, muscles locked, breath held. Behavioral psychologists describe this as an adaptive pause, allowing the senses to gather information and avoid detection. Sometimes this freeze becomes so profound, it is called tonic immobility, where movement feels impossible even when the mind wants to act. As the threat draws closer, the body may switch to flight or fight. But not everyone moves at the same pace or in the same way. A student recalling a campus lockdown described, "Everything narrowed. I couldn't move at first. It felt like my ears just shut off, and all I could focus on was the door." This tunnel vision, paired with auditory exclusion, is a direct result of the brain's defensive circuits rerouting attention to survival cues. Later, memories may come back in flashes, faces, sounds, fragments out of order. These are not failures of character or willpower. They are predictable outputs of the fear circuitry, shaped by the continuum of threat imminence. Understanding these patterns helps destigmatize common reactions and reminds us that, in the moment, the brain is doing exactly what it was built to do. Campus safety isn't just about alarms and hardware. It's about shaping what happens in those first seconds. Short, practiced commands like "lockdown now" or "lights out" of sight cut through panic and guide action, especially when the brain's decision-making is overloaded. Drills that repeat these scripts help students and staff respond almost automatically, bypassing hesitation. Signs on doors and clear emergency maps reduce confusion, letting people act without second-guessing. Hardware matters too. One-touch locks and well-marked safe corners can save precious seconds and remove the need for complex decisions. Leadership plays its part. When a safety director or trusted staff member gives clear, confident instructions, crowds are more likely to follow, turning fear into coordinated movement. Not everyone reacts the same way. A history of trauma or high baseline anxiety can change how someone processes alarms, sometimes making it harder to act or easier to freeze. The most effective safety plans account for these differences, building in layers of support and clarity at every step. Every policy, drill, or design shapes how our brains meet crisis. The next alarm could flip that switch for any of us. Preparedness isn't just procedure, it's rewiring survival. Stay aware,